Hello, this is our Ecotec standalone wiring harness. Basically, it's just a stock Ecotec wiring harness where we just removed all the unnecessary items, like emissions and that sort of thing, and then wired in power to make it all standalone. I'll go through each of the connections in a bit more detail. Basically, here you have your PCM connectors. And we'll follow her down to, this is about the midpoint. We've got our two grounds. We've got the fan connection, your crankshaft position sensor. This is the area right around the fan, and the grounds hook up to the the stock mounting location on the transmission. Okay, so split off here. This is your air intake. If you still have it on your on your air intake, this plugs it right in there. This goes up to the spark module, and then these go over to the engine coolant temperature sensor and the stock oxygen sensor. So go back over here. This is the stock oil pressure sensor connector. We usually remove the stock oil pressure sensor and put a pressure switch in. That way when your oil pressure drops, the switch opens up, and we wire this into the fuel pump. You don't need the pressure switch. In fact, this here is if you don't have it, you just tie it right to ground. But if you do have it, you would plug this into the oil pressure switch. This connection here goes up to the starter. We got the 12 volt that powers the harness, the PCM, everything. And then you got your typical starter energized connection. Here we have the knock sensor. Here we have the alternator trigger. This goes to the idle air control. This goes to the the sub harness that's up on the fuel rail that goes to the injectors, the map sensor, all of that. And this goes up to your throttle body. You got the idle air control and then the throttle position sensor. This one is extra. It was the air pressure or air conditioning high pressure switch sensor. We leave it there because if you want to get a wideband oxygen sensor, we found that that's a very good input to feed back in if you use like HP tuners. But this is how you could tie a wideband oxygen sensor in to start reading it. So we'll go back up to the top here. This splits off up to the passenger compartment. Basically, once you remove the stock harness, there's that big hole in the firewall. We just feed this all up through. And we have 3 relays wired into the harness. 2 of them are for the fuel pump. One gets triggered either by the ground or by the pressure switch to turn on the fuel pump. The second one is for cold starts. Anyone who's put a pressure switch in knows that it can take a while to build up pressure on a cold start, so we trigger the fuel pump on start as well, so you don't have that. Here we have a breaker. It's a 50 amp breaker. Basically, it will open up if it detects any short. That way your harness and PCM and yourself is protected from any shorts. It automatically closes back up once the short is removed, so that's pretty cool. The last one is the trigger for the fan. The fan draws a lot of current, so we put a relay in there to prevent blowing fuses. This is another ground for the harness. It connects right up on top of the steering column where the stock grounds used to be. This is the plug for your fuel pump. Once you wire your fuel pump in, I provide a pigtail with a connector on here so that you can just plug it right in. This one's same connector, but it's wired right into plus 12. That way, if anything goes wrong with the pressure switch, relay, anything, you can hook your fuel pump right to plus 12 and get her going. Obviously, OBD port. Obviously you need that if you want to do any scanning for errors or do any performance tuning. And up here we have our switch box. We have it tied in with a 6-pin weatherproof connector. That makes it real easy to switch harnesses, boxes, anything out. You don't need any soldering irons, no crimpers. It's just all plug and play. That's basically it in a nutshell. Hope you enjoyed.